Having a 6'5" dad and a 6'2" mother, you knew I was going to be tall, and you knew that I was going to have to play a sport. But I was not considered to be a great player. I was in 5th grade put on the D team. I should have been cut in my 5th grade year, but they decided to make a 4th team. There's A, there's B, there's C, and then they made D for me. So I mean, we're talking about like I didn't make the team. Like, I didn't make the team.
Yo, what it do? It's your boy, the SRT guy. We're back on your screen with another one. Feed My Pockets Entertainment. I have a legendary player from the Minnesota Gophers. I'm super excited to have him on here today. In 2016 to 2018, Minnesota Gopher Big Ten Defensive Player of 2017, Estonian Champion 2019, Serie A2 Defensive Player 2020, Israel Premier Blocks Leader 2024, Polish Super Cup winner 2024, and to top it all off, 2024 Premier Polish Super Cup MVP, and Dad of the Year for 2025, man.
Hey,
I appreciate you coming on, brother.
No, I appreciate you very much. I couldn't think of a grander entrance.
Right? I mean, that's a hell of a bio, bro.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I hope to grow the bio even more.
Absolutely. Yeah. When somebody reads that off to you, what registers in your mind? Like, holy shit, that's me? Or
yeah, I mean, for me, it's just like, I've been teammates with a lot of people who come from, various backgrounds who are, stars, legends, and they got accolades after accolades after accolades. But for me, like, to be able to say that I am one of the people who has just like a list of accolades, and especially a defensive list of accolades, like that's something I take pride in. Cause like there's a lot of guys who take so much pride in like, all conference, all whatever team, offense, scoring, MVP, When you look at my list, it's like block shot leader, defensive leader. Like these are the things that I take pride in. So for me,
that wins championships, right?
Yeah, defense wins championships. You already know. They've been saying they say it to you when you're young, and it's very prevalent today because without defense, I haven't been able to accomplish what I've been able to accomplish.
Yeah, when I was putting this together and I was reading this stuff, and I was just like, holy shit, the defensive. I mean, that's just crazy and awesome. Yeah. When did you realize, we're going to kick this back all the way to the beginning, but when did you realize that basketball was going to be something that you truly wanted to do? Obviously, your height, right? Your size. Yeah. But that obviously didn't come until later on. But
yeah,
when you were like, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. I want to do basketball.
Yeah, I mean, having a 6'5" dad and a 6'2" mother, you knew I was going to be tall, and you knew that I was going to have to play a sport. But my dad was the one who particularly got me into playing basketball. His younger brother is Kevin Lynch, who played for the Minnesota Gophers a long time ago and went to the NBA. And so it was kind of destiny that I was going to play basketball in particular. But I was not considered to be a great player until probably high school. I was in 5th grade put on the D team, which is basically the team that gets cut.
Yeah.
I should have been cut in my 5th grade year, but they decided to make a 4th team. There's A, there's B, there's C, and then they made D for me. So, I mean, we're talking about like I didn't make the team. Like, I didn't make the team in 5th grade. And it's not like, I went from D until all of a sudden I was great. I actually was 6th grade C, 7th grade B, finally made the A team on 8th grade. So I'm not one of those guys, like I'm trying to think of guys like, Tyus Jones and guys that are like Chet Holmgren. Like these dudes have been top prospects since they were 10 years old. But like for me, I was one of those guys that had to climb, and you didn't really know who Reggie Lynch was until like high school, maybe. Yeah. So for me, I would say particularly it was when I was in 8th grade when I finally made the A team, when I realized I could be a good player, because up until then, I had to prove myself that I was even worthy of being on the best team in my grade. And then once I finally was the best team in my grade, I was like, I think we finally reached a point where I can propel to even better heights from here. So I'd say 8th grade would be the...
How tall were you in 8th grade?
Yeah, I mean, I've literally been the tallest my entire life. When I was in 5th, 6th, 7th grade, I was in the classroom. I was the tallest in all my class. I remember when I turned 6 feet, that would be the beginning of 9th. So I think 8th grade, I was like about 5'11" ish around that time.
So just because you were tall,
Yeah.
doesn't mean you were making the best team.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was a skinny kid. I mean, I don't know if you guys can see right now, but I got a decent amount of muscle on me. I'm 260 right now, but I mean, I was a scrawny dude back in the day, uncorded, scrawny dude with an afro.
Was that common for like guys like you when you are that young, that tall, that you're just kind of kind of?
I mean, there were like, I wasn't the only tall guy because, I went to Edina. I was one of only a few, black kids in Edina. You could probably imagine, if you guys know the Minnesota school system, Edina is not particularly a black school system.
Right.
But so I was one of the only black kids on the team or in the whole school. And there were other guys, when I was in fifth grade, that were, close to or like not quite as tall as me, but, taller fifth graders, taller sixth graders. But I was probably the most uncoordinated of all those taller guys. So I was just flailing my body around, like catching the ball, trying to throw it at the rim. But it was easy to throw me the ball because I was so tall, and I had long arms. But I did not particularly know what I was doing. But I did have determination to become better because I also had a lot of guys who were even taller than me that were on that not on my fifth grade team, but were guys that I played against. And then the next year in sixth grade, I didn't see them ever again. So those guys clearly didn't continue with the sport.
Right.
But I had the determination to become a better basketball player and finally make it on that eighth grade A team. So, yeah, I do tend to see a lot of, tall, scrawny, uncoordinated guys who find their way like I did. But there are a lot that just don't get out of that phase of uncoordination. Like not being coordinated, and they're just like, you know what, I'm just gonna pick up the trombone or start drumming or pick up a different hobby. But luckily, I stuck with it because it's a lot. It's
a lot of work. I mean, it's not like you're just shooting a basketball, and that's what the thing is when you're in that motion, you're in the last team on in eighth grade, you finally make it to the top of your class, but you had to work so hard to get there. It just didn't come to you naturally.
No, it didn't. But the one thing that did come naturally, which I would say is the biggest, thing that you can say about me being a good basketball player, and it's been ever since I was young, is although I wasn't the best scorer, I was pretty uncoordinated. I didn't really know what I was doing. I always had this knack for blocking people's shots.
Yes.
And when I was in fifth grade, I blocked someone's shot, and then they caught the ball back, and I blocked it again with my left hand. So I blocked it right, they got it back, blocked it with my left.
So you've been blocking your whole life.
I've been blocking my whole life. And I was told, I don't think I was told fifth grade, I think it was about seventh grade when I was told by one of my coaches, one of my AAU coaches, he said, Reggie, do you realize that you're a really good shot blocker with your offhand? For me, I never noticed it. I was just like, I'm just trying to get it. Like whatever hand is the easiest to go get it is the one I'm going to use. But I guess to my coach, he realized that that's like not something people do. It's like they try to block with one hand all the time. But the fact that I was so good with my offhand to be able to block was what made me a great shot blocker and a great defender in general. And I think what helped me propel forward to becoming a better player as I got older, because although I needed to improve my offensive game, my defensive game was basically top of the class at all times, because I was able to get it with the right hand or get it with the left hand to start, and then be able to set the feet and get it back with the other hand. And that was able to stop a lot of people's shots and help us score. Because I mean, ultimately, like we're fifth, sixth, seventh grade. We're not there's no one who's like an elite scorer in fifth, sixth, seventh grade. So it's like, if you can stop the other team from scoring, you can maybe get yourself a chance to get more baskets.
Right.
Yep.
So you go from eighth grade, you're going up to your freshman year.
Yeah.
In Edina.
Yep.
Where did you rank? Because now you're moving up with the big boys, right? At this point, this is you're trying to get on varsity.
Yep.
You're trying to set a name for yourself.
Yep.
You're in a school that has money.
Yeah.
The kids are going to camps. Kids they're not just taking this lightly. They want to be somewhere.
Yeah.
What made you go in ninth grade? How long did it take you before you even hit the varsity floor?
Yeah. So very similarly to my rise in middle school from 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, D, C, B, A, just as similar for my high school. I actually didn't even stick with Edina for my high school. I actually ended up transferring to Jefferson. And that was a decision that I made based off of the fact that back when I was at Edina High School, high school for Edina started in 10th grade. So I would have had to be in another year of middle school. And I didn't want to do that because by my 8th grade year, when I finally made the A team, I was like, I think I need to start playing, and I need to be in high school now. Like, I don't want to be in middle school another year. So I decided to go to Jefferson, which is where my dad, as well as like my whole, my dad's brothers and sisters and my uncle Kevin Lynch, who played for the Gophers, like they went to Jefferson. And my grandfather was the assistant high school coach at Jefferson for almost 40 years.
Wow.
Rest in peace to my grandfather. He just died 4 or 5 years ago, but he was inducted in the Hall of Fame at Jefferson High School for his 38 years of assistant basketball coaching for
That's hard to do.
For the Jaguars. Yep.
Wow. That's cool.
So it was kind of like a family decision to, leave Edina. I didn't want to leave Edina because I did love Edina, but I did ultimately think that for basketball purposes, it would be nice to be in a high school setting instead of around more middle schoolers. So I ended up going to Jefferson, playing on the freshman team, doing really well there. And then sophomore year, it was just on the sophomore team. I still wasn't on varsity. Whereas if you looked at Tyus, he probably was on varsity since he was in 8th grade.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm not particularly one of the best players in the state by 10th grade. I'm still just like a guy who's decent, but he's still playing on the sophomore team as a sophomore. But it was my junior year when, after 2 years of Jefferson, it was the right move to go there, but it ultimately wasn't where I wanted to be. I wanted to be back with my friends that I grew up with in Edina. It was closer to my home because my family lives in Edina. So I decided to leave Jefferson and say goodbye to all my friends there who I made, but I wanted to return back to where I felt was home. Because ultimately for me, Jefferson was a little bit of a tougher situation because, leaving school, I didn't think about all the fact that I'd have to make new friends. I just thought about the basketball. Right. Which basketball-wise, it did help me, but ultimately I wasn't as happy as I was. So I ended up returning back to Edina, where all my guys who were my teammates on my 8th grade A team were like, Reg, welcome back. We really needed you because we were about to not be very good on varsity if we didn't have you.
So they took you back open arms, understanding why you did it.
Yeah.
Because when you're transferring back and forth and stuff, some people get butthurt, right?
Yeah.
So when you're coming back into Edina, on the varsity team at this point, because you're going to be moving up.
Yep.
What did you bring to them? Did you bring them anything they could learn from?
Yeah.
Because you transferred back and forth and showing them different things and different types of ropes?
Yeah, I would say absolutely because, Edina plays in the Lake Conference. I forgot the name of the conference that Jefferson plays in, but Jefferson actually plays in the conference with Apple Valley, which is where Tyus Jones was. So when I was at Edina, I never really played against Tyus Jones, but when I was in Jefferson, I did 2 years in a row because finally I did get called up for some varsity minutes, but ultimately I was still on the sophomore team. But when I was a sophomore, I was able to play up for a couple games for the Jefferson varsity team. So playing against Tyus Jones and actually getting like up close and personal with a guy who would ultimately become a 10. I think right now he's a 10-year NBA player.
Yeah.
I mean, so bringing that back to Edina in the Lake Conference where we have Hopkins and Eden Prairie and Minnetonka, I was able to basically bring the fact that I played against Tyus Jones and high-level players in that conference and bring it back to our challenge that we faced in the Lake Conference, which is Hopkins.
Right.
And all the guys that basically were on my 8th grade A team stayed with each other. And so I was able to gel easily back with them.
Yep.
And because there was basically no guy taller than 6'4". At this time, when I'm returning back to Edina High School, I had grown from about 6'2" my freshman year to 6'5", 6'7". So
shit.
There was no one taller than 6'4" on the Edina varsity team.
That had been some growing pains.
Yeah. So they absolutely needed to have a defensive and tall presence like me returning back to them. And the fact that we were all teammates in my 8th grade A team, we all gelled really well together and we took off from there. And I just want to give a shout out to the boys. Graham Woodward, you might know him. He was my point guard. He ended up playing at Penn State and Drake. Me and him were top guys in the state for 2013 class. Mark Hanberg, the blonde sniper, the blonde 6'4" sniper, and Dane Tudeberg and all these guys. These were my boys that I played with in 8th grade A. We gelled together and we started taking guys out in in the Lake Conference.
Do you still talk to him today?
Oh yeah. I was just in Graham Woodward's wedding as best man 2 summers ago, and Graham was in my wedding the same summer. But yeah, me and my 8th grade and varsity teammates were basically best friends. We were just hanging out a couple of weeks ago.
That's awesome.
So it's good to know that. I'm really happy with the decision I made to leave Jefferson and come back to Edina, because I created lifelong friendships with those boys.
Yeah, basketball is going to be your life, but you also have to have friends. You also have to have that connection with them. And I think it's super cool that you're able to, as you guys get older and grow, you guys are still together, and that's super cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
No, absolutely, man.
So did you guys ever win state?
Yeah. So this is the thing. We, we're like, even though we were an amazing squad, we were still Edina, and we had an uphill battle. But the main thing that we needed to conquer was our junior year. We were good. You could see that we were good, but we just needed to get a little bit older and a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, a little bit better. Our junior year, we probably were, ended the season like 14-12 or like 17-11 or something like that. But the next year, I believe we only lost 4 games until the state tournament, and three of those victories of our 24 wins all were against Hopkins.
Was that a rival, Hopkins?
So our rival is actually Eden Prairie, but the thing is, Hopkins had beat us up until the 2013 my senior season. They had beaten us every game ever since 1992.
Nice.
So we hadn't beaten Hopkins for about 21, 22 years.
Wow.
And we beat them all 3 times the years that I was a senior.
That's awesome.
For us, and that was against Amir Coffey when he was a freshman. I know he was a freshman. You got a lot better when you got older, Amir. But yeah, we beat you 3 times when you were a freshman, brother.
Yeah, he's going to hold it down when he can. That's for damn sure.
I know. And it was the first game, we beat them by like 20 at their place. We beat them by like 20 at our place. And then it was the third game, the section game, to go to state.
Oh, that's a big one.
And Amir's played a lot better, and it was a much closer game. But I guarded Amir on the inbounds pass when we were up 1 or 2 points with a few seconds left. They needed 3 seconds to score some half court shot. I guarded the inbounds pass. Amir throws it right to my boy Graham Woodward.
Nice.
So right when that happened,
they couldn't see over your tall ass.
Yep, exactly. Hey, I got the wingspan. I was making sure he wasn't getting that ball to anyone on his team. So he threw it right to my boy Graham. Graham throws the ball in the air. We're going to state. But unfortunately, after winning by 40 to Andover in the first game, we lost to Park Center in the second game. Park Center had Quentin Hooker. Shout out to Quentin Hooker. That's my boy. He was also one of the better players from our class, 2013 class, and he ended up playing on a lot of overseas teams that I'm familiar with. But Quentin Hooker just got me in foul trouble early. He was driving down the lane, getting buckets, and we lost that game by about 8-9 points and had to play for third.
Hey.
But luckily, we did smack Eden Prairie, which is our rival, by about 40 in that third place game. So
nice.
We ended up getting third place, didn't win state. Tyus and them ended up taking it for the championship, but Edina hasn't been to the state tournament since I was a senior, and they weren't in it for about 30, 40 years before.
Wow.
So I'm one of those Edina teams that ended up making it to state. So I'm proud of that.
Oh, absolutely. You got to hang your hat on that for sure, especially
absolutely.
when they haven't done it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you graduate from high school.
Yep.
You're focused on basketball career.
Yep.
At what point in high school, obviously probably, your senior year, you realized I'm going to college.
Yeah.
I'm going to play ball. This is what I'm going to do. How did you decide where you wanted to go full time?
Yeah.
Like, how do you make that decision?
Yeah. No, I mean, the whole aspect of, playing professionally, and like my dream was to be in the NBA ever since 5th grade. I think you asked that question earlier, like when did I know what I wanted to do? It was more like 8th grade when I knew I could, but it was 5th grade when ever since I was 5 years old, I wanted to be in the NBA. And finally, it was those years when I transferred back to Edina when I realized that, I had all my boys around me. We all gelled together and we're all playing amazing together. It's like Graham was getting offers from colleges. Other guys were getting offers from colleges, and I got a lot. So I was like, okay, it's time to finally realize, Reg, you can play in college and you can go to the NBA or at least play professionally if you want. And it's like, it's time to decide where you want to go. So for me, it was my summer of my junior year going into my senior year when I started to get my first offers. But I still, similarly to my middle school and high school rise, I didn't get like Duke and North Carolina and like top schools. I was getting some mid majors to start and like some maybe low high majors. So I was starting to get offers, but they weren't like, it's not like I was getting, Duke and Arizona and all that type of stuff. But first offer I got was a D2 school. Then I started getting, South Dakota State, Missouri State, Fairfield, LaSalle, all these, some schools scattered around the Midwest and the Southeast and out East and yada, yada. But I took a visit to South Dakota State. I liked it, but I thought it was a little bit boring out there. There was not much going on out there. But I got to say, I do love South Dakota State now because my wife went to South Dakota State.
Okay, fair enough.
So me and my wife like to get a kick out of the fact that I told her like, hey, I could have gone to your school, but it looked a little boring. Or we could have met each other in college, but I don't know.
That's awesome.
But I love South Dakota State now. She went there, so I won't talk too much shit. And then I took a visit to LaSalle. I really liked it out there, but I just didn't like I'm a Midwest guy ultimately, and I liked the feeling of being in the Midwest. Going to grungy Philly was a little bit intimidating to me.
You weren't mean like them?
Yeah, I was a little bit like, this seems like it's going to be a lot.
Yeah, right.
But then I took a visit to Fairfield, which was actually very, very intriguing to me. Fairfield, which is out in Connecticut, which is kind of like being in Edina on the East Coast. Yep. And ultimately, that was one of the closest I came to taking an offer because I also have, my mother is from Harlem, New York. I have a very big family and presence out in New York City, Manhattan, which is not far from, probably an hour drive from Fairfield. Yeah. So I was very close to being like, I'm down to be out here and close to New York and my family out there. But it was the visit to Illinois State when I felt the most like this feels like the right move because it just, the guys who took me on a visit, the coach really liked me. The assistant coach was like very, very personable and like really just like showing me like the vision of how it would be to be here. And I enjoyed it a lot. So I decided to go to Illinois State for my first year. And while I was there, I was like, okay, I just, almost won state a couple months ago. Now I'm in college as a freshman. And it's like, I didn't know like what to expect. But it's just like my similar mindset of when I was in middle school and making that D team was just like, well, it is what it is. I made the D team. I got to get better. I got to improve. Right. So I'm a freshman getting my ass kicked in the summer workouts. And like, we're doing like, we don't, back in the day, like now kids in high school, like with social media, they want to go to the gym all the time. How often do you go to Lifetime and there's like high schoolers in there now?
Every day.
It's crazy. Yeah. Did you
at
go to
5 a.m.?
Did you go to the gym when you were in high school?
Nope.
Never. I'm telling you. So like, I never went to the gym when I was in high school. I was still scrawny. Like I told you, I was skinny growing up. I was still skinny going into Illinois State. Right. But then going from not working out, maybe going to a weight room 3 times total in all of high school to like, we're doing like the Navy SEAL training, like the freshman 15, like going ham. Yep. Like, bro, I was not ready for all that. But ultimately, it's like, this is what it is. It's like, if I want to be on the team, I got to lift, I got to gain weight, I got to gain muscle, I got to, get better. So going into the freshman season, I went from 225 pounds my senior year, which seems like a lot, but but remember, I'm 6'9". Yep. So 225 pounds is not.
And you're stepping into college.
Exactly. So 225, 6'9". I ended up being 255 by the time the season started.
In like 3 months.
In like 3 months, yeah.
So what were you eating? I mean, I obviously I come from fitness, in the bodybuilding stuff, but do they give you an eating plan?
Yeah.
That you have to reg by?
Yeah, there are. So the fact that, I was at Illinois State my first years and then I ended up going to the Gophers. So I have 2 different types of, like 2 flavors of how the trainers do their stuff. Yep. I actually think Illinois State went a little bit harder with the Navy SEAL, like trying to get that freshman 15. Like I think Minnesota was a little bit more chill, but particularly Illinois State, we had a he's like 5'6", like he's kind of like one of those like Navy SEAL type dudes where he was
beat up in high school.
Yeah. He talked to shout out to him, Chris Winters, that's his name. He's the man because ultimately he's the man who got me from scrawny to like I could move people around.
Yeah,
because this dude would talk to you only like a Navy SEAL, like drill sergeant, and that's how it was. It was like he was our strength coach, so it's like there's no other way we're going about these like strength conditioning workouts. It's like we're getting the Navy SEAL treatment only. So we would wake up, do 5 a.m., like do like obstacle courses, like where we run up the stadium like stairs and like carry something and like run down and like have to like get back to the court. We would like crawl up a hill. We'd have to like carry people up hills, like do tire pushes. Like this was like insane to me.
So you call your mom and dad, Mom, what'd you guys sign me up for?
No, literally, that's how I felt for like the first 3 months. Like the summer training was insane to me. But ultimately, it's like I've never been the type of dude to just be like, I'm quitting. Like I'm not a quitter. I might complain. No one, just because you don't quit doesn't mean you don't complain.
Absolutely, 100.
I'm a big complainer. I would be like saying,
you play NBA and you play basketball. All basketball players complain.
Exactly. I'm not LeBron level, but I'll definitely am just like, bro, this is stupid. I would be like that, but just because I'd say it's stupid doesn't mean I wouldn't do it.
Right.
So we do all those workouts for like 3 months. We do basketball. We do 2-a-days, do yada yada. But he would give us these shakes after everything for the summer workouts. We wouldn't drink the shakes during the season, but when it was that summer, we would drink these shakes, especially if you were like a skinnier guy. Like there was like groups. It was like if you were like really scrawny kid in high school, if you were like more built, you didn't have to drink as many. But I was in the skinny group. So I had to drink like 2, maybe 3 like thick shakes of like protein
mass builders
with all that like muscle milk's in there, protein is in there. Like it was crazy. So I had to drink that for like 3 months straight and lift every day, twice a day, and by the time the season started out, I gained 30 more pounds, and most of it was muscle.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no, there's a significant difference between my senior year photos and my freshman year photos for sure. The only thing that's the same is I had an afro for both.
Yes. Which we'll have to put that up for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if I want you guys to see my freshman year photos, but all good. You can do it.
So you step into college, Illinois.
Yeah.
Step on the court.
Yeah.
What's running through your mind? I mean, there's got to be stuff going through your mind like, wow, this is real. I'm here. This is what I've dreamt of. This is all this hard work that I've been doing since 5th grade.
Yeah.
Showing myself and the people around me. Because going to college on a sport, I feel is a huge accomplishment because you have to stick through that. You have to put the work in. You can't quit.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much that is involved that a lot of people don't understand. But what's going through your mind? You're stepping on the court.
Yeah.
Time, the buzzer's going off and you're like, wow, this is real.
Yeah. No, I mean, so for me, the whole like 3 months of getting ready for the game, like that ultimately you would think like hardened me to make me like ready for anything. But no, once I hit that first game, like I didn't start my first game. I was a freshman and we had an older center named John Jones who was from Barbados. He was already built. Like he was already pretty strong, but he was not as good defensively as me. Maybe he was equal offensively, but I was better defensively. He was the starter because he was older. And when I first got checked in the game, it was like after he got a couple fouls and I got in, I was like butterflies. Like I felt everything, like lights are on me. And I was just telling my wife yesterday because it was against VCU with Shaka Smart when he was there and he was doing the Havoc like crazy like pressing with his like full court pressing with 5 guys. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But I still ended up scoring about 8-9 points, but they were definitely garbage buckets. They were just like, it was like me when I was in 5th grade, just catch the ball and like throw it at the rim and try and get it in.
Do the old grandma shot.
They were all bad buckets, but I got like about 6 points in. I got a couple blocks, a couple rebounds. And so it was a decent showing for me individually.
Right.
We ended up losing by about 40.
Yeah, but still, you're at that point.
VCU, at VCU was our first game. And the significance of why I was telling my wife about this is we were watching VCU yesterday. And I told her, I was like, did you know that was my first ever college game? Like I played against VCU at that building. She's like, really? How was that? And I was like, fucking crazy because I was scared I was on the court basically playing scared. And at the same time, it was weird because Shaka Smart he didn't offer me, but he did give me a call. He was one of the guys who was considering for me to go to his school. But so it was weird, like playing against him that first game, because I'm like, oh, I could have actually gone here maybe.
And he's watching you for sure.
Yeah, he's watching you for sure. But the reason I ended up going there is because on our phone call, he basically explained to me like his system, and it scared the shit out of me because he's like, we press full court. So he's like, he knew I was a great defensive player, and he's like, since you're such a great defensive player, you could easily like trap full court, right?
Yeah.
I was like, no, like blocking shots at the rim doesn't mean I'm.
That's a whole different. Like, that's a whole different story.
Going up there and like trying to trap people like for full court. That's like, that sounds crazy.
Sounds like death.
So he was calling me trying to like convince me like, hey, you should come here because this is what we do. But all I heard was like, wow, that's the reason I shouldn't go there.
Right,
that sounds like hell. But yeah, no. So that first game was against VCU. We lost by 40, but a few more games went by. We got a win, a loss, a win, a loss. I did a little bit better, and then by the fifth game, I was a starter. By the end of the season, I had ended up basically being like one of the best shot blockers in the league again, like I always have been.
Yeah,
and I ended up making the all-freshman team in the MVC and the all-defensive team as a freshman. So
that's pretty good.
Another good showing for me to like give me confidence to know like, hey, you're getting better. You can possibly play pro if you keep this up.
Yeah. Yep. So go back to the high school. You know, you obviously moved up and so forth. You didn't have a lot of film, I'm assuming, because you weren't in the spotlight. You weren't having those options there.
Yeah.
Now you're in college, you're getting the film on you.
Yeah.
People are watching you. People are noticing you.
Yep.
What made you go, I want to go back home?
Yeah. So that ultimately ended up happening after my sophomore year. So freshman year, I had a good showing, and it's like, okay, just like my first year going back to Edina, where it's like you could see we'd be good.
Right.
It's like, and my senior year at Edina, we were good. It's like my freshman year, I had two other incoming freshmen on my team besides me, and we both, all three of us did really well our freshman year. We were only going to get better our next year because we ended up coming back. Not too many people graduated, so it's like basically the same team. Plus, we had a couple other incoming freshmen who were actually pretty good guys out of high school. So sophomore year was the year where it's like, okay, we had a decent showing my first year, 2013, 2014. 2015 season, we're talking possibly trying to win this conference. And the MVC conference had Wichita State at the time, which back in that day, guys on the, like, you know, there were a lot of guys that went to the NBA from Wichita State. This was the year when Wichita State was always in the tournament.
Right.
Northern Iowa was also really good. There were some guys on that team that were really, really, you know, tough to beat. So it was basically like those two were the top dogs, and us, Illinois State, was like the one. It's like maybe we can knock those guys off, but we'll basically be the third best team. And
you could win it on a good day, making sure you're getting all locked in.
It's like we should beat the rest of the conference overall, but it's like we basically are the third best team, and it's like, can we beat these two top dogs? Well, by the time we ended up in the MVC tournament, we did beat Wichita State, and I had a great game against them. And I think I believe I was interviewed after the game for, you know, being the MVP of that first round MVC tournament game. So ended up my sophomore year making, like, I was all freshman team my first year, but now I'm a sophomore. I ended up making all conference and all tournament. But we ended up losing to Northern Iowa. We got up by like 20, but they came back from like being down 20, and then they ended up beating us by like 3 or 4 points, which was so crushing because we definitely could have won that game, but we ended up getting second place in the tournament, losing to Northern Iowa, and then that didn't send us to the NCAA tournament, and instead sent us to the NIT, which we also had a pretty decent showing. We ended up winning the first 2 games of that, and then losing the third, which if we had won that, we would have been in the semis for the NIT.
Yeah, because that's one and done, right?
Yeah, exactly. So NIT is just like the NCAA. But another good showing my sophomore year. And basically, it's just like we can only be better my third year. But that summer, the assistant coach who I told you was like basically one of the main reasons I wanted to come to Illinois State, because he was like the man. He's like showing me the vision. He was super nice. He was amazing. He like showed my family like around everything.
Yeah.
He was like my go-to, my favorite assistant. He ended up dying in a plane crash flew from Illinois State to the NCAA tournament and back. Flying back to Illinois State, there was a jet that carried him and a few other Illinois State staff members. They were close to the runway in Bloomington, Illinois, and the fog was too crazy, and the plane crashed.
Oh my gosh!
Absolutely crazy. You can look it up. But my assistant coach's name was Torrey Ward, and he was my guy. And so at this time, I had already thought to myself, I might be good enough to like go play for Minnesota, because I actually had interest from Minnesota in high school from Tubby Smith, but I didn't get the offer. By this time, 1 or 2 years into college, Tubby Smith had left and Richard Pitino had become the head coach.
Yeah.
And Richard Pitino had much more of a mindset of keeping the in-state guys, whereas Tubby Smith did not recruit from in-state.
Right.
So I knew, I was like, I think at this time I might be able to go to Minnesota because I'm doing really well in college.
Right.
Like, I think I could play for University of Minnesota. Torrey Ward, the assistant coach who ended up passing away, he had a conversation with me because I had voiced to the head coach that I might want to be able to transfer. And I'll never forget our conversation. It was at his house with his wife, and his kid was playing on the floor. And he just said, "Hey man, the head coach has told me, like, try and get Reggie to stay. We need him to stay. Like, the other assistants are like, Reg, we need you to stay. Like, don't let Reggie leave." And then Torrey's like, "That's all true, man. I want you to stay." But he's like, ultimately, do what you feel is right. He's like, no other guys on the staff will say this, but I'll say it. He's like, do what you feel is right.
Right.
He's like, there's no loyalty in this world. It's all what's right for you.
Right.
And I'll never forget that. And I told him, I was like, I'll let you know, like, before anybody else what I decided to do. And I never got to let him know, because I believe it was about 5 days later when he passed away on that plane crash. So
wow.
After that, whole Illinois State team comes together because we basically got a text like 7 a.m. from our head coach saying everyone meet in the gym. We all met in the gym thinking we were all in trouble.
Right. Hey, oh, so we're going to have to do.
Yeah. And then we met in the gym, and then the coach comes in crying and tells us that we didn't know. And so after we let it, we all came together and, like, said rest in peace and paid our respects. I told my fam, I was like, I can't imagine being here without Torrey. I think I'm going to go to Minnesota. So after I put myself up for, being able to transfer, because back in the day, you couldn't transfer without sitting out a year.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to either have a sick family member or like a real reason to not have to sit out. I knew that if I transferred to Illinois State, I'd have to sit out. But the only school I wanted to go to was Minnesota. I didn't want to transfer to be able to have options. I just wanted to go to Minnesota.
Right.
But when I did, I got an offer from Iowa State, and I got one from Texas, which was Shaka Smart had left VCU and went to Texas, and then he actually finally gave me the offer.
Right.
He didn't give me the offer when he was at VCU, but he did when he was at Texas. So clearly, it was nice to see that 40-point loss that we had to him didn't affect him too much. He still remembered me as a good player. But I ultimately said I just want to go to Minnesota, and ended up going to Minnesota that summer. Sat out that year, and and one of my first interviews I did when I got to Minnesota was about like the decision to come there and how that was. And I told him it was just Torrey Ward passing away. I couldn't be. I had to honor what he said. He's like, do what you feel is right,
Which is awesome. I mean, because like you said, a lot of coaches won't tell you that because they want to win, right?
Yeah.
They want the best players on their team and so forth. So you sat out your first year in Minnesota.
Yeah.
When you say you sit out, are you still practicing with the team? Are you still able to work out with them? Are you still able to run plays in practice with them? Like, how does that? What does that mean?
So I don't know how it is now. I'm assuming the rule doesn't change that much. The only problem is, do you ever sit out anymore?
Right.
But when you sit out, when you used to have to sit out for transferring back in the day, was allowed to do basically everything except for travel to away games and obviously play.
Right.
Can't play in any games, can't travel to away games. And I believe that's it. Yeah. I mean, I was practicing. I was doing the summer lifts. I was participating in all off-court activities with the team.
So you were still practicing, gelling with them, getting prepared to play for them the following season.
Yes. And for me, I do actually think that I needed a year to sit out because ultimately, even though I did really well in Illinois State, I don't think I was ready for the Big Ten 1 year, like 3 months later.
Yeah.
I think I needed a year.
That's a pretty big jump.
Yeah, because
that's a big jump.
Because I mean, Illinois State, the MVC conference is great, but I mean, the Big Ten is like fucking like dudes are taller, dudes are stronger, dudes are better, like for sure. So I'm just like, so I was going against, by the year that I transferred there, it's like Nate Mason had been there 1 year. He was like the freshman star. We already had Jordan Murphy arrive there as a freshman. We had Dupree, we had Joey King, who had already been there a couple of years. Actually, Joey was a transfer from the Missouri Valley Conference too. He went to Drake, so I could have played against Joey, but I was 1 year late. But yeah, Joey was at Drake, and then he transferred to Minnesota. We had Carlos Morris, and we had the two African centers who ended up being my backups when I played. When I started playing, Bakari.
That's awesome. Yeah, they were my backups.
They were my backups. I mean, they weren't my backups when I was sitting out, but when I played, they were my backups.
That's awesome.
But no, Bakari and Gaston, my two African brothers.
Yeah.
So no, they had a solid team. But ultimately, the year that I sat out was a bad year for the Gophers. We ended up being, I think, 6 and like 22.
There was a lot of change that year, though, wasn't there?
Yeah. That was Pitino's, I think, second or third year.
Yeah, I remember that.
So he still had guys from the Tubby Smith years that he didn't necessarily recruit. Like I was one of Pitino's recruits. I was actually particularly a Ben Johnson recruit, the current coach of the Gophers. Ben Johnson was one of the guys who snagged me. But I mean, Pitino was dealing with guys that he didn't recruit. He was dealing with, just a lot of freshmen on that team. So ultimately, it's like the people who had to lead the team would have been like Joey King and like a couple of the Tubby Smith guys. And ultimately, I would say they weren't like particularly the best leaders on our team. Great guys, but I think just as a team, we needed a little bit more of a leader. And I think that leader ended up becoming Nate Mason, which is the year that I ended up playing, because Nate was a freshman when I transferred there, but he was a sophomore and he played really well as a freshman the year before. I was really cool with him. Jordan Murphy was a good freshman. He got better for his sophomore year. Amir had arrived, and he was a great in-state recruit for Pitino. So basically, it gelled out to be my first year sitting out. I'm practicing with them, getting used to them, and then by the time my year that I'm able to play, Nate's a lot better. The African centers, VK and Gaston, are getting better to be good role players. Dupree McBrayer, who was a decent freshman, ended up being a good role player. Jordan's a lot better. Amir's a phenom. And then I'm coming in, bringing in my, most shot blocking in Illinois State history and like physicality that I got to the team, and really helped us out that next year.
How much does it mean to the team and how you guys play when you guys are off the court? When you guys are off the court, do you guys just go your own way? Or do you guys literally do everything together? You guys are, talking all the time. Like, does that help on the court?
Yeah.
When you guys gel off the court, because then you guys are already knowing what you guys are doing while you're in the games.
Yeah.
Is that huge?
No, I mean, one of the biggest things that now that I'm professional, I would say one of the biggest things is team chemistry. Cause like you can have an amazingly talented team and just implode because you guys can't get along with each other.
Yeah.
And luckily, my Illinois State years, I didn't talk enough about my guys at Illinois State, but Paris Lee, Devon Purcell, Mikhail McIntosh, Deontay Hawkins, like Tony Wills, these guys were all like my boys when I played at Illinois State, and we were great friends off the court, which is why we were such a good team at Illinois State. Not just because we were good, but we loved each other.
Right.
Same thing with University of Minnesota, like me and Nate Mason and my other incoming transfer, because I didn't transfer alone. I transferred with another person, Devontae Fitzgerald. He transferred from Texas A&M the same year I transferred, so we both sat out together. We became really close. Charles Buggs, my roommate, who I mentioned to you before. Yeah. He's good friends with Keith, by the way. He was my boy, and like we would in the summer we would go on the boat and like surf a little bit. We'd hang out in bars and stuff. But yeah, no, my teammates at Minnesota, we would hang out all the time, and I think it was just like the fact that we like loved each other as friends and as teammates made the game so much easier, because like you were root for each other when, like, even if you're not having a good game, you feel good when your teammate's doing well.
Right.
It like makes them feel better and play better.
Absolutely.
So that's how we were. I'm blessed to be able to have been a part of great like chemistry teams when I was in college. I've been a part of not very good chemistry teams as a pro, and I can, now that I've been a part of that, I can appreciate the good chemistry teams that I was a part of when I was in college.
Because it tells you how much that truly means, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. So definitely, I would say one of the best aspects of like being a good team is like good chemistry.
Yeah.
Some coaches, which I think that is bullshit, a bullshit remark that some coaches make, is like, you don't have to like each other. You just got to play well together.
Yeah, I don't agree with that either.
I agree. I say you have to like each other.
Agreed, yeah.
There's no way you can't like each other, in my opinion.
Agreed 100%.
Yeah.